Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, my name's Izzy and I collect cool to hot growing orchids here in my apartment in Sydney. Today I've got a bit of an orchid haul for you, including an unboxing of a new orchid I just received in the post, so let's get started. Okay, so to start us off, I'm going to start with the two largest ones probably first. The first two I got off of Facebook Marketplace actually, which you do have to be somewhat careful about because sometimes people can put on their divisions of orchids they've got, and sometimes they've only just divided them, potted them up and put them straight on Marketplace. So they can be a little bit notorious for dying if they haven't settled in yet in their current environment before they've been sold on. I know that sounds a bit sad and dodgy, like not everyone's dodgy, but you just got to be a little bit cautious on places like Marketplace when it's not coming from an actual orchid nursery or somewhere sort of reputable, if that makes sense. So this one is Encyclia Cordigera or Cordigera. I'm not really sure how you pronounce it. I'd probably pronounce it Cordigera myself. This one, hopefully you can see here. Also, really quick, something kind of exciting for Christmas, I got a little microphone. So hopefully you don't hear the little stepper rattling in my camera when things are trying to focus, and hopefully the audio is a little bit better quality. So yes, this one was in spike when I got it off Facebook Marketplace from a lovely seller. It is nice and healthy. It looks like it is a division of a bigger plant that she had. And I don't know about you, but in Australia, I've been finding it's kind of tricky to find too many encyclias available. There are a couple of orchid nurseries at the moment that I've spoken to at shows and things that are saying they're getting more into encyclias and trying to do more crosses and bring out more species encyclias, that sort of thing. But I haven't found them to be too readily available. So when I saw these two on Marketplace, yeah, I snapped them up pretty quickly and was very excited that they were also in spike so that I can enjoy the blooms fully for a really long period of time, as opposed to if they were already open as well. I mean, it's not that important. The most important thing is we've got the orchids, they're secured, but yeah, pretty exciting. So this one has quite large pseudobulb, you can probably see there, and then a couple of other new growths as well. So that was something else that I looked for before purchasing this orchid. In the photos that she'd popped on Marketplace, you could see the new growths, and she advertised that there were new growths on there, which basically means this orchid is happy and healthy enough, and it's obviously got a good enough root system to sustain giving it some new growths as well. So that's a really good sign. You can never fully tell normally, like when you go pick up an orchid from Marketplace, give it a good look, see if it looks like it's in a pretty good potting medium, see if the orchid itself looks healthy. This one, she did say to me she was watering each day by just sort of spritzing it with a bit of water. Some of the bulbs were a bit shriveled and some of them were cracked as well. So she was possibly over watering, but overall it's nice and healthy. These flowers have been open for quite a few weeks now. They are starting to fade, but I'll see if I can just show you. I'll put some photos on the screen in a minute as well so you can see, but hopefully that's in focus. Hopefully you can see they are a beautiful purple and green color with a tiny little bit of yellow in there as well. It is also scented. At the moment, because they're starting to fade, it isn't as scented as it first was when it first opened. I would describe the scent as sort of coconutty. My husband, however, thinks it's more of like a grape type scent, but kind of sweet, kind of musky, really beautiful scent, not overpowering or anything. You do have to sort of go up to the flower to give it a little sniff, but yeah, very excited about this one. And then I'll show you, so this is a species Encyclia as well, and they're most common in dry dwarfish forests along the Pacific and Atlantic coasts. They are also warm to hot growing epiphytes, so I've been keeping it outside on my balcony. Mainly at the moment we don't have enough shelving to house all of our orchids, so that's something we're going to have to fix fairly soon. But I've been sitting it on my outdoor table so it can get a bit of morning light. It is shaded in the afternoon, but considering it's summer at the moment here in Australia, it has been getting nice warm conditions and being able to dry out a bit quicker and get more light than if it were inside on the shelves behind me. The second Encyclia that I got from the same seller on Facebook Marketplace is Encyclia Tampensis. This one is nicknamed the butterfly orchid and is native to places like Florida and Cuba or the Bahamas, and is mostly found in sort of moist forests at low altitudes. So it does like relatively high humidity, but nothing too crazy, just as long as it sort of stays above 50% most of the time. I've heard then this one can be pretty happy. This one had a flower spike developing. It has flowered and now the flowers are fading or have mostly faded. I mean, there's one left. It has very cute little tiny flowers that are like a yellowy green sort of color with a bit of pinky purple on the lip. This one is fading, so you may or may not be able to see it too well. I'll just move my head out of the screen so it focuses. There we go. Hopefully you can see. I'll pop some photos up on the screen for you as well to see what it was like in full bloom. But these orchids can get really large sprays of the beautiful tiny flowers. So yeah, they can end up looking quite impressive as they mature. The orchid itself is really healthy. It's probably not necessarily quite as healthy as the Cordigera that I just showed you. The bulbs are a little bit sort of dehydrated, but I'm getting it there. It has only just finished flowering as well, so sometimes that can take a decent amount of energy out of the orchid as well. So I would like to repot these two fairly soon. They are in a mixture that looks pretty good. It is quite water retentive though, particularly in the Cordigera. There's a lot of coconut, what is it called? Coconut husk, coconut coir. You know, there's a lot of that in the medium, which is maybe a tiny little bit too water retentive for my conditions here. So I'll probably look at repotting them somewhere in the near future. But something quite exciting that I can't necessarily take credit for is my husband's actually pollinated these two with each other. And so far it looks to be somewhat successful. So I'll show you the Cordigera first. Basically, he's sort of cross-pollinated the two species because they're both species encyclias to see if we can get the cross, which is awesome. This, by no means is this something we're super experienced with, so if you have any tips or tricks, please leave them in the comments down below because we're not too sure what we're going to do next now that there's seed pods developing. I know obviously that the whole process of creating new orchids and getting the seeds and things like that to sort of start growing, they do have to be in a sterile environment and whatnot, or otherwise in the wild, the seed pods sort of open and the seeds are tinier and as smaller than sort of specks of dust, and they will sort of land on trees and things, and that's how they begin to grow. But we just thought, why not? We'll give it a little go, see what happens. But if you've got any tips and tricks other than, you know, we know you can pay to get them sent off to a lab and that sort of thing, which we might do, you never know. It's mainly just a bit of an experiment, a bit of fun. So where is one on here? You can see, okay, I'll show you here, for example, on these flowers, which are, you can see that the stems of the flowers look pretty normal. They're sort of that like whitey yellow color. Down here are some of the ones that he's pollinated. You can sort of see on this one, the stem's a bit thicker. Sorry, I'm having to look in my viewfinder to see that it's in focus. The stem is quite a bit thicker, and there is what looks like a seed pod developing. This one as well, the Tampensis, oh gosh, flicking flower spikes around the place. The Tampensis you might even be able to see a little bit better. I'll just pop it here for you. There you go. So see here, you've got the little seed pod developing. All the other flowers have faded. So if the pollination doesn't work, all the other flowers fade and sort of drop off as they have. But this one, like, yeah, the flower's still fading, but you can see its stem is thickening and creating a little seed pod, which is really exciting. So that's a little fun experiment that we've been working on. Okay, so the next two orchids I got from Lonne Orchids, which is a grower in Queensland. I've spoken about them before, but I just really like supporting their business. Everything I've gotten from them has always been really nice and healthy, and most of the time they've done really well. And they just have a really cool range of different types of orchids and kind of rarer orchids, things like that. So yes. The first one is called Gastrochilus Japonicus. And it is this little cutie here. It was in bloom when it first arrived, and it wasn't on this mount, it was in a pot. So we have actually mounted it since the flowers have sort of faded. I'll pop a little photo up here of what the flowers looked like when they were open. Its labellum creates this little like cup. It almost looks like a frog, you know, when frogs ribbit and their little throat expands. It's kind of a weird reference, but that's kind of what it reminds me of. It's really cute, and it is another miniature orchid, which is great. So I'm trying to collect a few more miniatures, seeing as I'm running out of space in my apartment. But yes, this one is also a miniature in size of the actual orchid and in flower size as well, which I love. They are native to the mountains of Japan and Taiwan, and they're an intermediate growing orchid temperature-wise and enjoy sort of low to medium light conditions as well, which is great. Anything with sort of slightly lower light requirements is amazing, because I have so many high light requiring orchids that this one doesn't require quite as much light, which is fantastic. And it is scented, and the scent is like a light citrus fragrance, which is really sweet. I love anything citrusy, so this one is perfect. And it's just really cute, and I'm really excited, and it's one I've saw sort of a little while ago and had on my wish list, and as soon as I saw it come up on eBay for sale as opposed to bidding, it was just sort of one you could buy outright. Yeah, there was no turning back. This one came home, and it has been very happy ever since. It is quite happy on its mount. I get the cork bark from either Orchid Den or Orchids R Us as well. They're two you can get online, and they're sent down. They're both in Queensland, so they're sent down to me in New South Wales. But cork bark is really good for mounting orchids because it doesn't break down as quickly as a lot of the other barks and wood that you can use, and it's also really porous and pH neutral, which is great. So I love the cork bark. It also is just really pretty as well, so you know, anything pretty also is great. So yes, and then I just drill a little hole in there. It's basically mounted with a bit of sphagnum moss over the roots so that when it's watered it does retain a little bit of the moisture, but it doesn't keep the roots too wet for too long. They can still drain freely. And the other week I actually just picked up this sort of Velcro tape that you can get from Bunnings, because prior to that I was using fishing wire, which is also good, but it's just a bit fiddly, and it can sometimes cut into the roots of the orchids or stop new growths from coming through if you've wrapped it in the slightly wrong place. So this Velcro tape is fantastic. Okay, so the second thing that we got from Rollin Orchids is Cattleya Harrisoniana cross Laelia Lucasiana. Laelia Lucasiana. Here we go, I'll show you on the screen here. This is a miniature Cattleya, which is awesome. I really love Cattleyas. I'm still getting a handle on their care, but doing quite a bit better now that they're in more of a free draining mix than I initially tried. Cattleyas really don't like to stay wet. They like to be soaked and then drain and have their roots completely dry out before you re-water them, which I was almost doing, but I was treating them more like Oncidium, so they weren't doing as well. But this Cattleya has beautiful purple and yellowy flowers, I believe. If I can, I'll pop a picture up here for you to show you what it sort of looks like. This one hasn't flowered, it has flowered before by the looks of it. It is flowering size, but it hasn't had a flower, or it didn't come with buds or anything like that. So hopefully it's got a couple of new growths coming up. So hopefully once they mature, it might flower. But I'm really excited about this one. This one's a cool to warm grower from memory. Both of the species Cattleyas that it's crossed with are cool to warm growers, so that's really good for the conditions I have here in Sydney. So very excited for this little guy when it gets a flower. Okay, so the next orchid we've got here is Paraphadenia Juraj. Please excuse my pronunciation. I'll pop the name on the screen for you. But this one is a primary hybrid of two orchids. I'm going to have to refer to my phone for this one for what their exact names are. The first one is Paraphadenia labucensis, which is also a very small genus of about 4 orchids, I believe it is. And then the second one, I'm really going to test my pronunciation here, is Sidenfadenia mitrata. I'll also pop the names on the screen for you. So the main idea, I believe, behind this primary hybrid is the Mitrata flowers generally only once a year, but the Paraphadenia labucensis flowers can flower multiple times a year. So this one is more floriferous and can flower quite a bit more. It also apparently has a really sweet rose-like fragrance, which is really nice. And the flowers just look really beautiful. Definitely, if you have a chance, look it up online. And when I get this one to hopefully flower, I will share with you what it's like and what its care is like. From what I've heard, this one's care, it generally takes sort of Vanda-like care, so highlight, lots of water, allow it to dry out between waterings, and lots of airflow as well. I haven't repotted this one since I got it. It's in sort of what looks like a pretty good mix of bark, just chunky bark really, that's all that's in there. Its pot is got quite a few holes in it as well and things, so yeah, it seems to be able to dry out fast enough. It's got some new root tips which are growing, which is fantastic, and it does have a little kiki in there. So yeah, there's two little plants in there, which is really nice. So very keen to see how this one does. So the next three are somewhat debated as to whether or not they grow or grow well in Sydney. I have, however, seen a lot of orchid shows. There must be growers in this area or around Sydney that successfully grow spatulata dendrobiums. So there is a grower on eBay who, from the looks of things, he only posts once a year. So when he put his posts up for this year, we definitely had a go at trying to bid on some orchids. Now, I'll just preface this with saying most of the time, well, not necessarily most of the time, but I have found eBay is not the greatest place to buy orchids from. Not because they're unhealthy or anything necessarily. The ones that I have gotten from eBay, majority of them have been really healthy. It's more just the bidding wars. People can be crazy with the bidding wars, so just be really careful. Some people, also some growers have let me know, people will bid hundreds and hundreds of dollars on an orchid and win the bid, and then they'll never hear from them or they'll never pay them, that sort of thing. So people can just be dodgy and try and win orchids. So it's not always worth it, but we did give it a go. We picked up 3 more dendrobiums. So the first one is Dendrobium Fraser's Blue Twister crossed with Dendrobium Adrian Lonne. I'll put the name up on the screen for you. But you can see here, it actually didn't come in this pot. We have repotted it since getting it. Also from, I believe, the Orchid Den, we got these really nice pots that are really aerated with mesh. But this one, the base, we've popped in some leca on the base, just for a little bit more drainage. And then there's purely just really chunky bark, some chunks of charcoal and some chunks of scoria or lava rock as well. So hopefully it likes its new little environment. You can see, I mean, we've had this one for probably just under a week now. They do go through some shock when they're in the post as well, so that's pretty normal. And these ones have come from Queensland, so it's a bit cooler down here than Queensland, but at least it's summer at the moment, so that's a really good time to help them transition a little bit easier. But they are losing some leaves, which is, you know, that can be normal, that's fine, while they're settling in. But overall the root system looks really healthy, and we've popped some, what is this called, like air moss, Spanish moss, I think it's called, like an air plant over the top to help with humidity, and they supposedly keep pests away as well. So very excited about that one. Second little curly boy is Dendrobium Gouldii Blue crossed with Dendrobium Cherub. Both of these, I believe, are miniature crosses. Well, this one I think is more of a miniature one than the other one. Some of the curly dendrobiums can get massive, so yeah, we'll see how I go with fitting them in once they start growing. Hopefully they start growing well. But yes, this is this little one you can see. I'll try and move out of the screen to show you. But he looks really healthy too. They're a pretty good size. I'm actually not too sure if they're flowering size or not yet. I think possibly, or they're almost flowering size. But yeah, this one's also in a mesh pot we've repotted it into with the leca, the bark, the charcoal and the lava rock with some more Spanish moss on the top. So yes, very excited about those two. And then this next one is kind of a little bit sad or embarrassing. Not necessarily embarrassing, like, you know, all of this orchid growing is really trial and error, but if you did watch my last orchid haul, I did get Dendrobium caniculatum, and today we have a Dendrobium caniculatum. So the other one I got was a little bit smaller. I'll see if I can get it down for you. It's actually inside because I haven't thrown it out yet, but it does look like it's really dying. So here she is. She does not look healthy by any means. We do have a Dendrobium Johannes, which apparently takes basically the exact same care as the Dendrobium caniculatum. I had it outside. I didn't overwater it. I think it had got enough light as well. I think it was just too small and it just got too shocked. This one we did get a few months ago as well, and it was cooler. So I do wonder if that had an influence on it coming from Queensland, moving down here. It was just a bit too cold for it for too long before the weather started warming up for summer. I think she's gone. So this is somewhat of a replacement. I'll just take some of this moss off so you can actually have a bit of a better look. But this one is a slightly different variation of the caniculatum. The other one was the Papua New Guinea variety. This one is called Caniculatum Mt Molloy, something or other. So it is kind of a little bit bigger. They are still miniature sized, and this one has had quite a few different flower spikes before. It has got a new growth on the side here. So hopefully maybe it will flower, you never know, maybe not, maybe in a year or so. Yeah, so I'm very sad about this little guy. I'm hopeful maybe he'll come back, but also I don't think he'll come back, you know. So that's why we've got this one. But yes, those are my 3 new dens that I have got. So these 3 are all living outside at the moment. I'm just being careful with their transition while they settle into their new environment. They're not in direct sun, they're in sort of highlight areas, but there's a little bit of shade as well, because you never know exactly where they were, where they came from. I presume they were in a greenhouse or something, so they didn't necessarily get direct sun. Yeah, and also I've watered them all in with sea salt and things when they first arrived, and make sure that they've got really good drainage. From what I've learnt, that seems to be the most important thing when you're adding new orchids to your collection. Okay, so now the bit that I've been waiting for, and you probably all have been waiting for as well, unboxing the newest edition. So this one is from Rosella Orchids, which is where this Paraphadenia came from. They're an orchid nursery in Grafton, or South Grafton, I believe, in New South Wales. So, I mean, it hasn't travelled too far, but it still has travelled a little way. Let's get this one opened. Okay, moment of truth. Here we go. All right, looks like it's packaged pretty well. Just turn this around so you can see. So it's got some sealed air pouches. Okay. Oh, there it is. Oh, I think it has a flower spike. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, I don't know if you can see. So it was packaged with a few like air pouches, and now it's in there in sort of some newspaper and things like that. Let's get her out. So this one is Sartylus Braveheart Sandy. So in my last orchid haul, you may remember I got a Sartylus Blue Knob. This one is somewhat oh my gosh, it's got a few flower spikes. This one is somewhat similar to that, but slightly different. And Sartylus are a genus of orchids that are a cross between a Rhynchostylus and a Sarcochilus. So this one is a very exciting new addition. All right, she's packaged very well. I'll give them that. They always package them really nicely, and they're always well protected. Let's carefully get it out. Oh, I see. Without damaging any of the roots. This is much more stressful when I know I'm filming myself. So if I make a mistake, it's recorded. All right. Here we go. Wow, it's got really good roots. Really long roots. Oh my gosh, I don't know if you can see that. All right, I think that's it in the box. I'll just move its box out of the way. The other thing I like is they always put like a tissue that's sticky taped down over the top of their orchids so that all the medium and stuff in the pot doesn't fall out. It looks really nice. It's kind of funny. It's got like a kiki growing from like part of the stem of the plant as well, which is a bit weird. Normally I've seen kikis grow, but they grow like at the bottom. So this is kind of funny. I'll just give you a bit of a close-up before I continue to unwrap it. So you can see like the stem is there and then this little kiki comes out from the side of it. But one of the other most exciting things, I think that one's done. Yeah. So there's a couple of flower spikes on here, like this one and this one, that are faded, but there are 2 new flower spikes. I'll kind of zoom in to show you. This one might be a bit hard for you to see. There's one like in here, but there's also one here, in here. It's very exciting. Okay. The other Sartilis, I got the blue knob from my last video. It also had a flower spike that wasn't too far along, but you know, decently far along. Once I got it back and after filming that video, the flower spike dried out. I think sometimes Sartilis are apparently a little bit finicky as well in their care and sort of to get used to and getting used to new conditions and things like that. So I think it just struggled. I think it just was a bit shocked when it moved. That one had come from a grower in Victoria, so maybe the conditions were different enough that it just went into a bit of shock and aborted its flower spike to sort of help itself to recover and get used to the new conditions. So I don't know, this one might do a similar thing, but mind you, that other Sartilis has started growing new spikes since. So hopefully we'll see the Sartilis blue knob flower in not too long. And fingers crossed this one we can get it to settle in and it can continue to develop its flower spikes and then we can see both of them in flower. That would be fantastic. But I really like this cross and the idea of this cross because I've been doing quite well with my Sarcochilus orchids. I've made a couple of care videos on them as well in repotting. So hopefully having Sarcochilus in it, it helps it to do well. And I've also got a Rhynchostylis, Rhynchostylis retusa, that has a flower spike at the moment. So I'll give you an update on that one once it's in bloom. But here we are. These hangers always get a bit bent in the post as well, but look, that's fine. I might take its hanger off it for a minute while we have a proper look. So it looks like it's in chunky bark and perlite. Oh, yeah, just chunky bark and perlite. So that's pretty good. I mean, Sarcochilus and Rhynchostylis, they're both like a well-draining, free-draining mix. So this ticks those boxes. I definitely wouldn't repot this one yet, particularly because it's got flower spikes. I don't want to do anything more than it's already had disturbing it. Oh, that root is like hooked on to the clip. I don't know if you can see that. Oh, I don't want to damage it. Oh, I'm a bit scared. I'll see if I can just gently get it off. I got it off. Okay. It's off. It's off. It's free. Okay, here we go. Let's have a bit of a better look. So here it is. It has lost a few leaves, I think, up there. It's kind of weird the way that the kiki has grown out of the part of the stem, like from one of the leaves. I'm not describing this very well, but you can hopefully see. But overall, it looks pretty healthy. I mean, some of the leaves on the original growth are a little bit yellow and a tiny bit wrinkly, which may indicate it may be a tiny little bit dehydrated. But I mean, it's got really long roots, like they come all the way down to here. It's got fresh root tips that are growing as well, which is great. So they've got a little green tip on the end, which means they're in active growth. And I can't wait to see what this one does. I really hope that it doesn't abort its flower spike, but look, if it does, the main thing is that I keep it nice and healthy and encourage it to grow. And then once it's healthy and happy again, maybe it will grow more flower spikes. Yeah, gee, that flower spike is going to be a little bit trapped in there. Just have to keep an eye on that. But other than that, very excited about this one. And it's just nice to be able to get new types of orchids and try new different ones, like the Sartilis, like the Encyclias, that sort of thing, and the curly dendrobiums. Like, I think with orchid growing, you just got to give things a go. But it's all a learning experience. It's all a bit of fun. This is a hobby, so, you know, give something a go. You might be pleasantly surprised, or you might be like me. That's my vacuum going out. Just 1 second. Apologies, I'm back. But yeah, you might be pleasantly surprised. You might find you actually find a way that you can grow that particular orchid that you really love. When I'm collecting, I really like to find orchids that I am really passionate about, ones that I really like the look of their flower. Then I'll look into their care, and hopefully, you know, hopefully it's something that I'm like, yep, I can definitely grow that. If it's intermediate or intermediate to warm or cool growing, maybe I can give that a go. But some of them I grow are hot growers, and it's all a bit of trial and error, which is also part of the reason why I made this channel, to share with you my success stories and also, you know, maybe things that I've struggled with, things that haven't worked. So yes, we will see how all of these new little babies go. I will water them in with sea salt, particularly this new one. I like to give some sea salt, not sea salt, sea salt, to help with any shock from the journey they've had and the fact that they haven't been watered for a few days. I just find it helps them to settle in a little bit better when they join the collection. So yeah. That's all I've got for you today, guys. I really hope you've enjoyed today's video. Please give me a like and subscribe if you'd like to see more of my orchid content. Pop a nice comment down below if you'd like to. I'd love to hear about any new types of orchids that you've just added to your collection to see what everyone else is growing. And also if you've got any tips and tricks about pollinating orchids and what to do with their seed pods, that would be really helpful. I do have quite a few orchids with flower spikes at the moment, so I should be doing a what's in bloom video in the near future. But until then, have a great week, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!